Hello, welcome. Welcome to this examination of the Excel problem for Chapter 9. So Chapter 9's Excel problem is ATC 9-9, Excel assignment, and it's on page 531. And it says, the following information is available for Lumberton Company for the week ending June 28th, 2013. All employees are paid time and a half for all hours over 40. Each employee has cumulative salary of over $7,000 but less than $110. So they're telling us that so we'll understand about the payroll tax obligations that we have to take out. Assume that the Social Security rate is 6% on the first $110,000 of wages, and the Medicare tax is 1.5% of total wages. The company contributes the retirement cost to a retirement plan for the employees. So the company contributes the retirement cost of a retirement plan for the employees. So if we look at the table just down there, the employees are Jillian, Carl, and Yolanda, and the pay rates are $15, $18, and $16 per hour. The hours that they worked are 32, 46, and 45. The federal withholding rate is 12%, 10%, and 10%. And the contributions to the retirement program are $20 per week, 10% of gross pay, and 10% of gross pay. So that information is made available to us. When we turn the page, it says, set up a spreadsheet to compute the net pay for each of the above employees. You will need to insert the appropriate Excel formulas. So I either want formulas or cell references for these, whichever works best for you. That will be fine with me. And so then we can look here at the spreadsheet that they asked for, and up here at the top, this starts on line 3. The spreadsheet starts on row 3. So I've asked you to put your name at the top where it says student name in the yellow box, and type your name up there. It says employee, and so you'll need to type Jillian, Carl, and Yolanda. And then the rates of pay are $15 an hour, $18 an hour, and $16 an hour. And then that regular hours that they worked were 32 for Jillian, 40 for Carl, and 40 for Yolanda, when 40 hours is a standard work week. The overtime rate of pay, now I'm going to be clicking on these so you can see. You type in their names, you type in their amounts of pay rates, you type in their amounts of hours, regular hours. Now Jillian only worked 32, she didn't even get up to the 40. The other two worked 40 hours and had some overtime. Their overtime rates are their B4, the regular rate of pay, times 1.5, or times 0.015, whichever way you want to do that mathematics. And so here we have it again for Carl, and his rate of pay, which is $18 and time and a half, and then Yolanda, which is $16 and time and a half. So by using the cell B6 for Yolanda and B5 for Carl and B4 for Jillian, we calculate their overtime rate based on their rate of pay. Now the overtime hours this pay period for this week are 0 for Jillian, 6 for Carl, and 5 for Yolanda. So now we want to know their gross pay. So you can see we just put those amounts in. Now their gross pay, now look very carefully at this, the way they've put in this formula. They want you to see how to do a compound formula. They show it here in the Excel spreadsheet and show you that you have a calculation plus and then another calculation, and each of those calculations are within a parentheses. So you're going to do, I want this to equal, and you're going to do B4 times C4. So here's B4 and here is C4, and you're going to want to multiply those two together within parentheses, and then you're going to add that to D4 times E4. Now you're putting in the formula that would be required for overtime, so that in every case you can see the regular pay and the overtime pay, and they're separated into two different parentheses so that you always can see the difference. But what you notice here is that in this case, Jillian, you're multiplying by 0. So it's going to fall out of the equation. The answer is going to be 0. And when you add those together, there's going to be no net results. So the gross pay is just her straight pay. But when you look at Carl, for example, you have B5, which is $18 times 40 hours. And so that's the first part of the calculation. And then you have D5, the overtime rate, times the number of hours, which are 6. And so then we get D5 times E5, and we add those together, and we get the total pay with standard pay in the front and overtime pay in the second. And then the same thing happens. Now these are all formulas, so I'm wanting to see all formulas. I want you to use this as a data table and calculate these amounts. So the first thing says, what is the total amount of compensation cost? Salary plus payroll taxes. I'm sorry, that's B. Set up the spreadsheet. You will need to insert the appropriate cell formulas. So that's what we've done for A. So then B says, what is the total amount of compensation cost? Salary plus payroll tax cost for Lumberton for the week. So for this we're going to look at the B part here. So I'm going to pull that up, whoops, so you can see it. So for the B, we need to know, they give it to us right here, and then we have to fill it out. So it's got all the headings, and then we fill out the amounts. So it says employee, excuse me please, employee gross pay, Social Security, Medicare, federal withholding amount, and net pay. We type those in, we highlight them all, and then we come to home and we tell it we want them all to be in bold, we want them all to be centered. So that makes ours look just like theirs in the book. So we can format row 9 just the way they have it looking in the book. Then for 10A and 11A and 12A, we can put in the people's names again. You can either highlight those here and copy them and then paste them in down here, or you can type them in, whichever you prefer, but you'll have to get the names in there. Now here, when we look at gross pay, remember we've had that cell reference. I want this gross pay to equal, so I'm putting in F4 up here. I want this to be equal to F4. So it's going to be equal sign, and I'm going to click on F4 over here. That's going to bring that whole formula forward. So we're going to have, this is going to be equal to F4, this one is going to be equal to F5, and this one's going to be equal to F6, because that was their gross pay that I calculated beforehand. Now when I have that gross pay, now I have to calculate Social Security. Now you can either do B10 times 0.06, or you could do B10 times 6%. either one of those will be just fine for you. And you can actually see, I think, up here that they have the B10 times 6%. Actually, when I click on it, you can, since it's big, you can see it right there. I'm trying to be very careful here. There we go. Now, for this one, when I highlight it, you can see it's B11 times B6, and oops, I gotta go back. And then this one is B12 times 6%. I'm doing those so that you can see them. Now then, Medicare is B10 times 1.5, so percent. You've got to put the percent sign in there at the end, and then Excel will move the decimal point for you. Same thing here. We've got B11 times 1.5, and then here we've got B12 times 1.5. So you can see that it's showing you those formulas. Now the federal withholding, I'm going to try to work around this. I'll lose it if I... So the federal withholding is B10, that base pay. Now it's times 12% in Jillian's case because she pays 12%. So I'm going to make that times 12%. Now for Carl, his is 10%. So again, I'm going to make it equal to B11 times 10%. And then I'm going to make this one equal to B12 times 10%. So now we're learning a new way of putting the percentages in that we haven't used before and letting Excel do this conversion to a percent for us. Now the net pay then becomes excuse me, B10, which you can see here, minus C10, D10, and E10, and then enter, and then you can do the same thing here. I'll actually light this up for you to be able to see it. So it's, oh, pardon me, B10 minus, excuse me, B11 minus C11, D11, and E11. And then I have, for Yolanda, I'm very sorry, I can't stop this, so I have to keep working. B12 minus C12, D12, and E12 to get their gross pay. So what is the total amount of compensation cost? It's asking for the week ending. So now the compensation costs, we have everybody's net pay here. We have everybody's total compensation over here. So in B, we have their gross pay, and in F, we have their net pay. So now we want to come down to line 15, and just like they have here on row 15, it says compensation cost for Lumberton. So I put compensation cost for Lumberton, and I put salary expense because that's the first compensation cost I'm going to have. So here are my employees. Again, you can type their names, you can use cell references, or you can copy and paste them in there. Any way you'd like to get those names in there is fine. Now here we're going to use cell references because here's her gross pay right up here. So we're just going to make that equal to B10. So we're going to say make Jillian's gross pay equal to B10. And then we're going to put in the same thing, B11 for Carl and B12. And now we're trying to get to total compensation. So we want to subtotal these. So we're going to underline here and use the home and the border box, bottom border, to signal to the reader I'm putting in, I'm doing a math formula at this point, and then I'm going to add. So I'm going to sum these, which I can use my auto sum and click on that and highlight those 3 boxes, and that'll give me my total salary expense in this compensation package. The next thing then I'm going to look at is payroll tax expenses. How much payroll tax expenses did I have for each of these folks? So here's payroll tax expense. Again, I have to get their names in there. I can either do a cell reference, I can type them, or I can copy and paste them, whichever one I want to do. Now over here I say their payroll tax for Jillian was equal to C10. So I'm going to come back up here, and here's my Social Security for Jillian, and that's in C10, C11 is for Carl, and C12 is for Yolanda. So that's my payroll tax expense. And then, now Medicare is not a payroll tax expense, and it's a payroll tax withholding, and it's going to be a federal cost to me. But I'm going to have, and withholding is how much that we withheld from their pay, not that I had to pay as a business. So now, just as I did before, I'm going to want to come in here, I'm going to want to go to home, and I'm going to want to use this bottom border. I'm going to want to put that bottom border in there and signal that I'm adding. And then I'm going to come over here and click on this, and now I'm going to sum these 3. So I can, at this point, say sum, drag up these boxes and hit an enter, and it will sum each of those for me. Now there's the retirement contribution. So here's retirement contributions. I have to put in the people's names. I'm bring this up here. Retirement contributions, Jillian, Carl, and Yolanda. Notice that they're indented again. And now this one is somebody has put in $20 for the retirement contributions, and we would look at their gross pay times their retirement. So she gets, for her, it's equal to $20 per week. So for Jillian, we have to type in $20 per week because it's a flat fee for her. But when we get here to Carl, Carl is 10% of gross pay. So when we get to Carl, we're going to see just what we saw before. I'm going to bring these up so you can see them a little bit better. The retirement contribution, Carl, is the B11 times 10% because it's gross pay times 10%. So for Carl, his gross pay is right over here, B11. So I click on that B11 equal to B11 times 10%. By putting it in this way, the Excel will automatically move the decimal point around for me. Same thing that I have here. Now I have B12, the gross pay times 10% for Yolanda. And now I want to add those 3 together and get the total of retirement contributions. But now what I was really trying to get to was the total compensation costs. So now the total compensation costs, I have to underline with a border, underline D30, because I'm going to add together this D column, and then I'm going to put in the total amount. Now I have actually been instructing you to only put dollar signs in the tops of the columns the person who did this solution put them everywhere. So if you put them everywhere, I won't take it off from you. But to show what you've learned so far, you should probably only have dollar signs in the top of each column the first time the amount appears. So now the total compensation then is the sum of these three numbers. And so we see it here as sum D20 through D30. Sum these columns, this column for me, and then enter. Now the next requirement says Lumberton is considering adding group health and for its employees as part of its benefit package. If the average cost of health insurance per employee is $3,900 per year, how much additional cost would that be to weekly compensation? Now they say to you, assume the addition of health insurance and recompute the total compensation cost for Lumberton for this 1 week so that you begin to see how that might work. So we're going to pull this up so you can see it. Whoops. So the average health insurance per year, which is $3,900, that goes in the top line. Then this is going to be a border underline. This is going to be a merge cell. So when we look at home, we're finding a merge and center there, and then we're finding a border underline for this line, and then divide by the number of weeks per year. So there are 52 weeks in a year. So we put in the $3,900 and the 52 weeks in the year. So then the additional weekly compensation would be, and here we have D35 divide by D36. So here's 35 and 36 being divided by one another, so we get a cost per week per employee, and it's $75. So then if it's $75 per employee and we had 3 employees this week, it would be E38, $75 times 3, because we have 3 employees, to make 229. Now this should be equal to this times this. And it does not like these other numbers in here, so I'm going to come in here. I can't do that because of the reference back to the other values. So I'm going to take this out, and what they have done the math and put in the 225, but it would really be better to have this set up for those two to multiply out. So then the previous compensation was equal to D31 right here. Here's the D31 right there, D31. So over here we're going to have D31. I'm going to do it so you can see that. Make that cell reference to D31, and then, whoops, we all do that, don't we? And now I have to sum these two. I have to sum the 225 and the 24, 33, 52, and the two of them is the new compensation costs. So the sum of those two, and I'm going to make that so you can see it, I'm summing those two in here. And that's how the Excel problem goes together this week. So I hope that you're able to use your Excel skills, you're able to follow along what I've done here. Remember that anytime you want to, you can look at the presentation and grab the speaker bar and just pull it back, and I'll repeat my words to you over again. So I'm looking for you to use cell formulas and cell references every place that you possibly can, and to create, they had you create this top section of the spreadsheet as a data table, so you could go back and get it, and you were doing calculations within that. So that's how the Excel problem goes together. Of course, if you have any questions, I welcome you sending me an email, coming by my office, coming to office hours. Many of you, or several of you, I actually should say, were in the lab and have most of this done. So thank you, and have a good weekend.